Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how to replace the leather on a camera, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do it, both with pre-cut leather coverings and, more importantly, how to make your own. Now this Polaroid SX-70 model, one of them, I forget which one it is, came in with really gross leather that was just sticky and falling apart, and I've done my best to get the covering off, but have not been fully successful. There is some adhesive left on here in a few places. So I'm going to try one more thing here. Rubbing alcohol is pretty good for getting rid of adhesive. Another thing, of course, is the pine scented or citrus scented, I'm not quite sure which, stuff in the yellow bottle, or yellow stuff in the clear bottle. We can use a paper towel, and I'll tell you what, if this doesn't get it up, it's not coming up. And you know what it's not going to do? Come up, which I knew because I have gone over this 6 or 7 times with the yellow citrus stuff in the clear bottle. So I think this is as good as we're going to get it. And check the bottom. Bottom's not in meaningfully better condition, but we will clean it just to make sure that the adhesive-backed material can mount to it. So I have here some pre-cut camera leather that I got from Akia Asahi, I believe. There we go. This is pre-cut for this model of camera. So getting a pre-cut leather is a really, really easy way to redo the leather covering. We're going to start with the easiest piece right here. There we go. If you want to ensure that you get the alignment exactly correct, I'm going to show you a trick to do that here with this front piece. I'm going to take cotton swab and some rubbing alcohol here, and we're going to try to get it all over. We're going to go with that being as close to clean as we're going to get. And there are some really good clean areas here, so I think this will be fine. I'm going to go over this with rubbing alcohol one more time, not to clean it, but to prevent the adhesive from sticking immediately. The rubbing alcohol gives us the ability to do some fine positioning on the adhesive part because it prevents the adhesive from sticking to the plastic for long enough that we can slide it around a little bit, and that makes sure that we don't have it in the wrong spot. That's pretty close. I goofed a little bit right there because I had a bad angle. Next we're going to grab the last top piece. Just going to slide it right in. There we go. That looks a whole lot better than it did just a couple of minutes ago. The bottom, not really that big of a deal. There aren't any challenging shapes here, really. We just need to make sure that we put the back piece over. One other thing rubbing alcohol does, by the way, is it'll give you a second chance to pull the adhesive off if you need to. But what we've done here is just make sure that we can put the backing piece over the tripod bushing so that that's still accessible. Now we know that's lined up correctly. We're going to grab the last piece here. And if there was one I should have used rubbing alcohol for, it was this one. There we go. Put that on successfully. So one of the really nice things about this process is that if you have a camera with bad leather, it gives you a chance to revitalize the look of it, or to completely change the look of a camera if that's what you're going for. And I gotta say, this came in, it had this nasty black sticky leather rubber stuff. With this white finish, it looks way, way better. Another one of my SX-70s that I've done this with is this old white Model B. I think that's the name of it. Yeah, Model 2. Oops. At any rate, this is my go-to SX-70 when I shoot Polaroid film, and it is fantastic. It came in with this brown leather that had this white dust on it, so I took that off and I put down this cherry wood finish on it instead, and I think it looks absolutely just stunning with the cherry wood finish. So you don't just have to use leather if you're going to replace a camera's finish. You can use other materials as well. Okay, so question time. What happens if you've got a camera like this? Works just fine. It's in great operational condition, but it has no leather on it. For the first time in a very long time, I have no dead K1000 bodies to scavenge parts from. But if you can find a dead K1000, this is an example of K1000. You can strip the leather off of another camera body and put it on. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You want to grab a razor and work it along the side. If you're lucky and you can find one where the glue has started to fail, that just makes this a whole lot easier. All right, so we got a corner. The leather itself is pretty strong, so once you get a corner, then you can just pull up the leather. All right, let's pretend for a minute that this is the good camera, not one that has a dead meter on it. And we're going to be applying this leather that we just scavenged from another camera onto the good camera. This guy's going off for repair, so so you can see here as the cotton swab is taking off this brown colored goo. That's the glue that was used. You can see it dried here. And the stuff is pretty easy to clean off with some rubbing alcohol. Intentionally by the camera makers, because these leather coverings have to come off when the camera's repaired. As you can see here, there are, what, four screws on this plate. When this camera goes in for repair, Eric's going to have to take the leather off, and then he's going to unscrew this plate to access components in here if he needs to do anything with the shutter. So this is the glue we're going to use. It's called Plyobond. It's a low VOC rubber cement. This bottle is a couple of years old, so the stuff is a bit stringier than normal. We're going to put some on to the camera body here. Go around the edges. I know this looks really sloppy, and it is, and that's, believe it or not, completely fine, and I'll show you why in a minute. Next thing we're going to do, whoa, I didn't actually need to worry about that spilling. All right, we're going to grab the piece of leather. The glue will not fog your optics, which something like crazy glue would. And also, if you can imagine using crazy glue on this, you would never get the leather off, which means that you would not be able to have your camera repaired if it needs to be. All right, so Mr. Smart Guy, we've got this right here. This is holding pretty well along this edge. On cameras with this general profile, this is the problem edge down here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to tidy up this work a little bit. We're going to grab some rubbing alcohol on this cotton swab, and the Plyobond turns into a non-adhesive jelly once it touches rubbing alcohol. So running a cotton swab with rubbing alcohol along your edges will clean up any of the Plyobond that you got outside of where you want to have your glue, such as on the camera body. And you can see there's a few drips here of glue that I'm cleaning up. And that one on my finger will take care of that. But we're still left with the issue that oftentimes leather right here that hasn't just been taken off of a camera will try to peel back up. It's a really easy way to fix that. I'm going to grab a rubber band and a cotton swab. Put the rubber band on first, cotton swab on second, and we're just going to leave it like this for about 24 hours. Probably needs less, but this is a good way. This cotton swab distributes pressure along this whole edge right here. The rubber band holds it in place, and then that gives the glue time to finish the adhering process before you need to, before it can so that it won't let go of the leather. And the cotton swab, because it gives a nice even pressure, does its job well. That's also why we cleaned up the edges first, so that this cotton swab doesn't get glued to the side of the camera. You can, of course, if you did screw up, you can clean the cotton off the same way with rubbing alcohol and another cotton swab. Okay. So it's time for a fair question. What happens if you've bought a camera that has no leather on it at all? You don't have another camera to take leather from, and you don't have even like a broken scrap of leather to figure out how to make your, how to put this leather together. Well, what you can do here in this situation is just make sure that you've cleaned up your camera a bit. This one is dusty from having sat on somebody's shelf or floor for many years, apparently. Let's get this side cleaned up. I'm going to use frog tape. This is the stuff I would recommend for this job because it comes off clean and it also comes off very easily. So I'm going to put this piece here. I'm going to start with that. Going to grab a razor, find the edge between the camera body and the top plate. We're just going to trim like that. Okay, we're making progress. I'm going to take this little scrap here. I'm just going to set it right there. That's just fine. We still have a little bit of a gap right there that I'm not comfortable with, so we're going to grab another piece of tape and we're just going to tidy that up a little bit. Ooh. If you can see right there, I nicked the base of the camera just a little bit. That's one of the risks of doing this, by the way. Go. You can also see right there I nicked the side of the camera because I had made an incorrect assumption that the front of the camera's leather covering went up to the same, well, it does go up to the same height as the back of the leather. I just forgot there was that black trim. So one of the risks of doing this, of course, is that if you're not very careful, you can leave scratches in your camera, and that's not something that I think any of us want to do. So now what I've got here is a piece of just 3M adhesive-backed stuff. And the reason that I've been using tape this whole time is because of course it adheres to the camera's body to give me time to cut out the shape. But if you're going to do this a bunch, practice your technique and get it to a point where you can just peel this off in one big go. Okay. There we go. Now we have our paper template for the shape of the leather that we need. So I'm going to go up here to this place where I've cut another shape of leather off already. And I'm going to take the tape and I'm just going to stick it onto the leather that we're going to use to make our new piece. Now, if you have an X-Acto knife, by all means do that. You do not have to have one. I'm just going to take a pair of scissors. There we go. Okay, so here's what I've got. The template now, we're a little bit outside the bounds of it, and that's going to let me fine-tune the template when I put it on. So let's fit this up here, and that looks pretty good so far. You can always cut more off. You cannot put any material back. So I'm going to do this in little tiny stages. Okay, that's good. Now we've got to work on this piece right here. Now we know that this is kind of a circle, so we can there we go. That actually looks pretty darn good like that. Now we've got to work on this part right here, which we know again is curved. And I didn't leave quite enough there, but that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. And one last little trim right here. There we go. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the tape off of our new leather. We're going to take the adhesive off the back of our new leather. And I'm going to slide this here and around. Now, one of the very nice things that's happened is I left a little bit too much here on this side. And that means that we can come back to our razor here. First, let's grab our scissors. Let's get this tucked in all the way. That gives us a nice line to cut to right there. Okay, there we go. And now it's just a matter of how tidy do you want your camera to be. I do like this work to be a little bit more tidy. So I'm going to take the razor and just slide it in along the edge like we did when we were cutting the tape. And that looks pretty darn good. I mean, there's a little bit right there we could have done slightly better. Looks good. There's a little bit right there that could have been done a little bit better. But overall, that's a nice step up from having nothing on it whatsoever. And if you're curious about how this can look with other colors, here's my, this was my grandfather's and then my father's Akia Ilux, which is a Terran something something something. There we go. And originally it had this color right here. The entire camera was that finish. As you can see that this was the first camera I ever did. There's a few places where it's not quite perfect. When this came back from the repairman after it was repaired because it wasn't working, the leather was just not salvageable. It was too brittle. So I had the opportunity to replace it, and I picked a color that was a good, nice red color. And it's a pretty bold finish and looks pretty good, especially from a couple of feet away. There we go. So the point of this is that if you want to do something like this with your cameras, especially if they're missing leather, you don't just have to go with a black finish that matches what they had. You can go with a color that looks good, your favorite color, the favorite color of the person who owned the camera before you, something like that, or just a color that really stands out and is interesting. and really gives you the ability to customize your camera just a little bit as well. Thank you for watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up. That lets me know that I'm on the right track producing content which is useful and helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments section below. I'm pretty good about checking these every couple of days and answering questions. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future videos, and if I have the technical know-how and equipment, I'm more than happy to make those. One last thing. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I gotta get up, Steinbeck. I have to turn off the camera.